Yes, ciao small group. We are Bruce Sterling and Jasmina Tesanovic. This is the Jasmina of Casa Jasmina. And this is the Internet of Women Things conversation here, which is good because we got like a small conversational group. So you can like ask us questions while we're showing stuff off. So we got our slides up. We got a bunch of slides here, and we're going to talk about kind of developments in the IOWT activism space here, and just have a conversation about some of the images that, especially things, objects, and little made devices and artworks that show up as we're doing our activist scene in Torino. So Casa Jasmina is the hospitality suite for the Arduino office and the Torino Fablab. And to have a hospitality suite was Jasmina's idea, which is why Massimo Bonzi named it Casa Jasmina. So Jasmina is the hostess of this little hotel room, which is in our factory, the Toolbox co-working factory, the former Garone foundry, which is an old Fiat factory that has been repaired and inhabited by a new generation of Turinese makers. So, where did Internet of Women Things come from? Maybe you can explain this IOWT image here, which is also on you want to show them the manifesto there?
Yes.
Yes, right. This is the core Internet of Women Things image.
Mm-hmm. Are you comfortable with English? Because I can speak Italian too. I mean, for me, it's fine, Italian. English is better. Okay, fine. Well, anyway, since we started this project, it's been 3 years, and you might have heard of it because it's also over by now, as it is, because we had an exit plan, And what we achieved there was actually different stuff, starting from being an empty space, which was supposed to be private.
Can you talk about the image itself?
The images?
Yes, the image.
Oh, the image.
Itself,
okay.
Yeah.
But the image comes at a certain point. You see, he's conversing with me.
That's right.
He's making me like.
Because we've got a lot of these to get through.
This is called conversation. Yeah. Anyway, we're married. This is the point. We never agree.
We're married so far.
And so long.
As our friend liked to say, this is my former girlfriend.
That's it. Well, after like a year of very nice and successful work, I realized that I was the only woman in the room, And since we're doing like domotica and we're doing like Internet of Things in a house, in a home, At that point, I wanted to think from and many things that the guys were inventing were brilliant were actually not very practical. Okay, they're the usual maker things, but not very practical. No, and at that point, I organized the first meeting group. We had, and it was on the terrace of our apartment, and then we called it Internet of Women Things. I was basically listening to them, and I was taking points because I'm not a maker, I'm not a designer, but I am a feminist, and it was my idea, and I love technology. So we took this image, which is the image of an electricity girl from the beginning of 20th century Campiello, and she was electricity. She was like representing the woman who is representing everything that electricity brings. And now in the 21st century, I think it is the internet, and then again it's the woman in the middle. So she is like the connecting point, and she's connecting the stuff, because the idea of Internet of Things is connecting things to one another. And the point of this manifesto is what and why should be connected, what things, because I found out that women do things differently. Now you want to talk about the connecting things.
Yeah, I will. So this is a rather well-known technology poster, which was designed in the very early 1920s in Turin by a commercial artist, graphic designer, Leonetto Cappiello. And if you look up Cappiello on Google Images, you'll see that he did like an incredible array of like liquor ads, clothing, and also like some technology and industrial stuff. So this is an image which is trying to persuade women in Italy in the 1920s that an electrical network is good for you, because you don't have any electrical power, and what's it for, right? So it could easily set fire to your house or electrocute you or kill you. But the spirit of electricity here is showing women of the period how much use they can get. They can make coffee, they can do their ironing now, they can do all these feminine kinds of things. So it's actually, it's a commercial image from Cappiello, which is intended to reduce women's fear, uncertainty, and doubt about a new network technology, right? And it is a network technology. It just happens to be a network of voltage, right? And it comes out of central generators, and it goes out to your house, and you're the consumer, and you buy the objects. And why do you want the electricity? Well, you don't just want the electricity, you want the power, right? You want to be able to do things with other objects. So, we're looking for historical parallels with the Internet of Things, which is also a network, and it carries data, and commonly it's manifested in things. That's why they call it the Internet of Things. So it's okay, what kind of things are they? What's your mediation between the things and the network, right? So Cappiello is sort of telling the woman, this is the spirit of electricity, and she's feminine, and she's really happy, and she's at the center of everything, and it's going to work out, and you don't have to worry about the electrocution or the power plant or the pollution or any of the rest of it. So we just borrowed this public domain image, which is out of copyright, because it was done in the early 1920s, and we hacked it. And, so we put on our new logo to show that we're interested in it, but also to show that we're aware that it's the same political problem.
Okay, so I wanted to say the 7 points,
so
because
things
have changed. Things have changed since Cappiello did in electricity, and the Internet of Things is, much more dangerous now, in the sense that politically dangerous, because we are Internet is around like electricity. You cannot live with it, and I don't want to become an Amish and go back 100 years and say I don't use Internet, I don't use electricity. But on the other hand, it has become something that's most of the time spying on you, making you a client, making you a user, making you a slave, And the children who are growing up in the things, I love them to use it, and they're much more creative with it, but they're basically being treated as slaves, of some kind of feudal society with Internet dominating. And now I want to just run through the 7 points. I won't be long, I promise.
No, that's okay. Look
Don't
at you. Look at her hanging. She's literally hanging her banner out the window.
Run through the 7 points, which is very typical of women, because I was even surprised when they told me the 7, because they're very critical. That is the point. The first one is the critical design of Internet. Many things that are already here around us are supposed to be different, This is the first point that women make up. The second one, they have the positive inclusion. They want to be more in the room. I've been to many conferences, and I was like one of the 3 women in the room. It's not normal to work in that way. The other one is positive seclusion. Even though 3 women that are in the room, they don't have their methods of working. It's more competitive. They like to work more together, and to have many doubts and say, I don't know how to do this. I don't understand. They have this, so they want to have a space of their own. Number 4, politics and policy. They're not happy with this spying system. The first thing that women who work on Internet of Things tell me, is there a place where we'll not be connected? Can we have firewalls? To whom are we connected? We don't want to be connected to a server. We are spied upon. It's history of women's body to be spied upon. They don't have possession of the body. So the social body of a home is something that it's supposed to be not disconnected or connected to whom you want to be connected. No? The number 5 is that they want to, sometimes this thinking about being a woman in Internet of Things world is you cannot even afford to be a woman. You just have to do it, and otherwise you're excluded completely. Like women scientists very often had to just deny that any private life, and this is something that it's very questionable having to do it. The number 6 point is design fiction. Women like to think very often about objects, connected objects, as stories with emotional and historical value. So they want to use the objects like their grandmother's chandelier, the things that you inherit, but which are bulky because they're old-fashioned, and they want to live easily, more easily, So they want all things that have emotional impact on you to be retrofitted for a more, a high-tech and controllable with press one button, off and on, without all those things, it makes you stupid, because I don't want Google to make me stupid, I want to make Google stupid. And I always call Casa Jasmina, it's a smart home, but for even smarter people. And I don't want my mattress to outsmart me. I keep saying that all the time. And the number 7 point, which is the important point for me, that women are very much aware that there is a very cultural diversity in using smart objects in a smart home. Meaning that people in Italy need different kinds of machines to be automatized in everyday life, from people in Serbia, where I come from, or from people in America. And I always use the same example: a coffee machine, a smart coffee machine. In Serbia, nobody wants it to be automatized button things. They want to grind the coffee, smoke while they're doing it. In Italy, they want a little poison kit like this. And in America, they have those coffees they call coffees, and they just run on the road pressing buttons, and it's different. And if you want to make an Internet of Things connected, really successful in a society, even to sell it, it doesn't have to be the best. It has to be something that people will accept because of their cultural differences, or what they want to use really. People like me, who is not, or your children, or my children, my grandfather, or somebody like that.
Well, maybe you should make the cultural integration thing issue number 8.
Number 8,
yeah,
cultural integration.
Because it's not on your list, and yet you mention it every time.
Okay, no, I have it. It's called diversity. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, nevertheless. Okay, so, Jasmina and I are both writers, and, we're journalists and novelists. So it's easy for us to talk about things like this and to be critical. But I think it's also really important to have a space where you can, get to hands-on with the issues, right? Yeah. So this would be that space. This is Casa Jasmina, and the very, very beat-up Garrone foundry in Via Egeo 16 in Torino, which was literally deserted since 1974 and full of rats and pigeons. But nevertheless, we're taking over a former office space in the Garrone foundry, which is about half the size of this room. I mean, it's really a pretty good-sized space that has the things you would need in a house. It's got a kitchen, it's got a bathroom, it's got a children's room, it's got a little garden, it has a living room, kind of a meeting space, library, and so forth. So we did this project for 2 years, and literally beginning with just a derelict space. You can see on some of the walls here how we left some of the walls in their original decayed condition to kind of show what we were doing and bringing it around. So I wrote this article for Make magazine, because I was a columnist for Make. And of course, it's mentioning Massimo Bonzi, who's basically our patron in a lot of ways. We're literally right across the hall from the Arduino office in Torino. And we've got mostly Arduino gear in there. We've got a smart lock. We've got tunable lights. We've got a little bit of Bluetooth music stuff going on there. What else do we have? We've got a controllable thermostat, got a Arduino irrigation system, a lot of the standard kind of things. We've got a pretty decent kitchen. Val Cucine likes us. They gave us a lot of free kitchen gear. So, we're in the place trying to understand what, a maker lifestyle looks like. Not just, can you, integrate the objects? Do they make sense together? Are there things that belong in a home? Or are there things that a home is lacking? And so forth. And it's really handy to have a space where you can have other people come in and stay and use the space and criticize it. And just kind of tell you, you don't have a hairdryer, right? Or, the water's too cold, or it's really noisy every night, or, we saw a pigeon come in the door. It's just, if you were merely writing manifestos about it, you don't get that kind of vivid, hands-on feeling.
Well, I also want to say that when we started living there was nothing. There were no doors, nothing, because it was we started to wanted to feel the space. And also, people, when we became everybody wanted to stay in Casa Jasmina, and people were giving us things, and I was not ashamed to give it back. Sometimes it would be great things, but I said, it's not really useful. The chair has to be comfortable. Try and sit in a chair for 2 hours. Not only beautiful, it has to be comfortable too. And also, people wanted to drop us very useless connected objects, which I was thinking, why would I have connected my my phone to my shower to my, this is how often people think that everything has to be connected without, and it was interesting when the guests would come, they would say, but you are not very much connected here, it's a normal home. I said, well, this is because you are living in a normal home. You have to cook, you have to have things for cooking, but it's not like you have your cell phone has to be connected to your shower, which is practically barely working, So this is where the attention goes.
Yeah, well, it's not a freak show. I mean, it's a place where
Yes.
people actually come together and work. And here we are with some of our friends and sponsors actually working in the living room of Casa Jasmina. So maybe you could talk something about the women who are here and what it is they're trying to get
I
done.
don't see the pictures. Oh, yes. So, as I
I'll
said,
turn
after
it
a very
for you.
short time, we became, we even made an artistic festival, Share Festival, which was art for home. Think about art for home. In your homes, you always have those paintings and, things that you keep seeing every day, and all of a sudden you can't move it because somebody put it there because it's expensive, God knows what. I was thinking, like, it would be nice if you could, like, move the art from one place to another.
This guy doesn't have the foam on it, so it's kind of bursting. Try talking to
This one is not connected.
That
so.
one live? Okay. Let's try.
So
At least
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Well, I'm getting
Anyway,
I'm getting
okay.
blast
So
in my
we
ear
were
here.
thinking, like, if we're already curator of the Share Festival for years, and that year, it was 2 years ago, we thought of making a call for artists to make art for a home, And since it's mostly virtual art and not physical thing, what I really liked about it, it's movable. So if you don't want to see your art all the time here, you can move it somewhere else. And there were so many nice projects, from the fact that you could transport your home. If you're somebody who's living always on the road, you can also carry your home somewhere else, and in a hotel room or in another flat, to the fact that you can always not have a home in that sense too much personalized. Anyway, there was a choice, And in this picture is our jury. It's Samantha Cristoforetti, Astrosam. You heard of her. She's the woman who spent most of her time in outer space, a woman who spent most of time, and she was very valuable because, for example, the way she was speaking about technology, even though she's one of those women who said, I never thought about myself as a woman because otherwise I would have never succeeded. But she did succeed because she went through a military career, and also because she met some Russians who said, never mind, nobody's perfect and you're a woman, It would be very hard to go through Italian society that way, I'm sure. I grew up in Italy. And then this is our Paola Antonelli. She's the curator from MoMA Museum, design curator. She was also a member of the jury. And also the other women are staff, from the Share Festival. And all of a sudden, Casa Jasmina also took this artistic trend. We were invited for a show in Vitra, meaning to think about everyday life in the future with soft robots, including when you try to start from scratch and think about your future and think how you live like we did, we're old, we're not young people. And we said, we don't want to live the way we lived. We want to do it's also risky, and it's a free space. You don't even know what you're going to do. It's like saying projecting ourselves in 30 years. But it also gives you this freedom of getting rid of old habits. And getting rid of old habits sometimes is good, sometimes is not good. Sometimes it's not pleasant, So every one of those habits you have to experiment on your own body, and refuse them. So I understand why it became also a Nazi project, especially if you think about growing up children that way. It's basically they're rid of something and you give them something which will make an impact for forever, And this, what did I forgot. I said everything. Artsy.
Right.
Well,
I'll describe some of the objects in the room
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Right.
That's best.
Yeah. So this is the living room of Casa Jasmina. And if you go, you might want to try that guy because the one who's missing the phone here is kind of busted. Here we have like a group of celebrities who are judging an art fair. But you can see that we're actually using Casa Jasmina as a working space here. So in the background, with all the books in it, that is the Italic bookshelf, open source bookshelf from Ronan Kadushin, Kudushin, a guy who's a furniture designer who's done a lot of open source design on Thingiverse and other areas. So it's just made of router cut plywood, and it has like no connecting joints in it at all. It's literally held together by friction and by the weight of the books in it. So, and you can pull it apart and kind of reassemble. We've tried painting it. We've done other things. I mean, that's our bookshelf. That's the Casa Jasmina library. Down in the front corner here, this object that's next to my laptop is the ethical fan, which is a design fiction that was done by Simone Rebedengo. And Simone Rebedengo is a guy who's won our Share Festival prize. Share Festival Torino, we really think very highly of Simone Rebedengo. He's an electronics engineer, works mostly in China, but he does a lot of conceptual technical things, right? They're kind of semi-functional. In the case of the ethical fan there, you have to use the switches on the side to explain your moral philosophy. And then the fan decides whether you deserve any cool air or not, right? So it's a kind of a smart Internet of Things intervention style device. Then in the middle of the table, this kind of colored thing that's circular. This is a zoetrope from the National Cinema Museum in Torino.
Mole.
Yeah, in the Mole. That's the Cinema Museum, the most popular museum in Torino, which is in the Torino's famous Mole Antonelliana. So this is a device which is basically a GIF maker. It's got small pieces of paper which have very brief animations. And when you spin it, it rotates and you look through the slots on the side and you see an animation, right? Because of persistence of vision qualities, right? So you could actually print out a GIF and put it on a strip of paper like the one that's in front of Captain Cristoforetti there. And you can put it in there and you can put internet media into a 19th century Victorian era optical toy, right? So you might not think that this very ancient piece of media art would be very exciting, but we actually showed that to Samantha Cristoforetti. And even though she's an engineer, a fighter pilot, and an Italian astronaut, she was absolutely stunned. I mean, she'd never seen a device like that or a media device like that. And I think it was the most amazing thing that she saw in our Share Festival, exhibit. I mean, we were going through 50 or 60 different entries trying to find 6 for our show. So she was one of the judges, and she was very familiar with new media. People in the International Space Station have virtual reality. They have all kinds of hardware up there. She's very keen on social media. She has something like, 500,000 followers on Twitter. She's very up to speed technically. But this thing from the National Cinema Museum was the one thing that really surprised her.
But what she was also interesting was, I forgot to say that when she was speaking about spending time in outer space, she was all the time thinking how you can apply it when you come down, this technology and this experience, which wasn't, so her experience of, she's not science fictional, she is the science fiction, she is there in the outer space, but she was all the time thinking how it works on our human everyday life, and which of these experiences you can use in technology in everyday life. This is typical of her, which I remember very well.
Yeah, and you can see that we're like seriously drinking serious Italian coffee in here. We're like, everybody's having a Lavazza coffee, including Paola Antonelli from the Museum of Modern Art in New York, who's the design curator, who's sitting right next to the astronaut. So the two of them had never met one another, but it turns out that Samantha Cristoforetti went into outer space with a Lavazza coffee maker and was drinking espresso in outer space out of zero gravity cups, right? Which are a particular kind of cup where the coffee clings to the side of the cup, right? Because you can't use gravity up there, right? So it's a very peculiar 3D printed cup. It looks, it looks like a little musical instrument. It doesn't really have a nozzle, but it's kind of flexible and plastic, and you kind of semi-squeeze it, and then like this zero gravity blob of Lavazza espresso comes out, and you kind of like suck it, into your mouth in outer space. So as she was explaining this to us, Paola Antonelli got very interested and actually took the cup and put it into the Museum of Modern Art as the first piece of housewares designed for exclusive outer space use, right? So it was part of this particular discussion that had this particular device end up in a design museum. So you can see that like actual cultural work's going on in there. Right?
Yeah, but our work is between this, inventing things in Casa Jasmina, and also making, the new generation really cannot afford to buy everything new or everything expensive, and we have this maker movement, and we have things that, but we don't want, on the other hand, we don't want to, everybody buys the same IKEA stuff. So the thing is like to combine this kind of ideas, to take the IKEA, retrofit it with IoT, and do it yourself. So to personalize it, to make this, and I think it's an economic and aesthetic model, which also includes this science fictional moment. Why not? Because you can be like the ultimate author without being an artist of your own life. And it doesn't have to be, beautiful for you. It's beautiful for me. This is the point, because, we don't have to go to an Armani's IoT house and like it. I don't. I personally would never live there. It's so clean, it's so white, it's alienating. But this kind of living in your own space where you can, with open source, with a Fablab around the corner, which everybody can use really, and with this kind of thinking also artistic and utility and artistic together, I think you can make really adapt to the economic crisis and also to this personalized everyday life, be the author of your life.
Oh, that's also an open source table that we've all got our hands on there, by the way. It's from openwood.com. So we're half done, and we've got like a hell of a lot of slides here.
We can end
we've got a lot. We've got a lot of slides, so let's just try to really whip through these here. Because I want to show you what people are doing who identify as Internet of Women Things practitioners or sympathizers.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so can you see that?
Yes.
Could you talk about that for 30 seconds and no longer?
The drill were used, the one with the most famous drills, I saw it in an exhibition in Milano, women designers, through history, was made by a woman. I forgot her name. But so, I took the drill in my hand. And after the internet, after this manifesto, I saw that the thinking developed in three directions. One is the political one, girls from London. They made a feminist internet things at university. The second one is an art one, manifestations, Dutch Design Week. You will see now they made amazing show. And the third one is the Makers Girl, electronics movement group, whatever, from Zurich. They're also doing amazing shit, really, So Bruce will now show you some, and this is all very new, I'm speaking about things that are new. The oldest is like 9 months old, and the newest is like 2 months old, and they're getting bigger, and really good. Show us the electronics.
Are you going to say anything about this?
The drill?
Yeah.
Well, you say it, come on.
This is Casa Jasmina when we came in and had to just route out the place. I mean, we put in new plumbing, we put in new electrical. I mean, literally nobody had been in there since 1974. We had to knock out a bunch of connecting walls. It was some pretty heavy-duty urban reconstruction. But, Italians are extremely good at this. And, we actually had to participate in that. I mean, we were the first people to sleep in there. Nobody had cleaned it. It was full of dirt. It was really a nightmarish situation, but it was very important to get our hands on the tools, including heavy construction stuff, and not be sissies about it. Okay, this is the kind of people who you would think of as kind of women in a high-tech, feminine space. There's a bunch of women from Fashion Nerd who I follow. Some of them are Italian. These are women who are into technology, fashion, and kind of from a very feminine point of view. I think this is kind of the cliche of like women in tech. It's like, okay, we're women in tech and we're going to make pretty things that other women will buy. But I think what's kind of interesting about this is that they're European women and that working in fashion can be integrated into like a lifestyle packaging situation. And there's a lot more of this going on than people understand, and a lot more of this going on than men understand. I don't think they know that there are so many nerd women who are kind of loose in the basement of fashion right now and really changing, they're changing the parameters of how this kind of stuff is packaged and done.
I think when an idea hits the mainstream, then we as activists don't have to work anymore, And like fashion is something where a lot of mainstream isn't there. And since we see those inventions that as Bruce said, no man would invent, because they're very related to the body. And they're also, the problem with Internet of Things as wearable is that sometimes it goes on the other side, which is exaggerated. Like very often I see machines like to monitor the beat of your baby's newborn baby. No sane mother wants to hear the beat of a newborn baby 24 hours a day. On the contrary, you have to get away from it, Otherwise, you become crazy. You already are crazy, or you become a hypochondriac if you put some stuff on your body and monitor your body all the time, So this kind of dividing line between useful wearables and useless and exaggerations is something that I think women in wearables are really much more aware of, and also the thing of making them pretty. Pretty is a word that I don't know how to use. It's personal, so you can't even. I don't want to go there, but I want to say that. Fashion that is made for women by men has often been something that constrains you. Like it's not I'm against high heels or anything like that, but often it has been a cultural way of holding a woman's body in order. In social order. And when they get hold of it, now I'm speaking historically from IoT to electricity, as we said. Okay, go ahead.
Just really 40 seconds.
I can't speak
well, we got a lot of things to work through.
Okay.
Try the next one.
Which one?
Code.
Oh, code. As I said in the manifesto, one of the points was that they were much more aware of this spying on the bodies. And the code is actually it was made by a guy. You explain it. It's a whistleblower's code. So when it's pretty much invisible. You don't have the pick of the code. No. It looks like
I do have part of the code, however.
Yes, it looks like a normal code, but inside you cannot see, you cannot track him with his iPhone. He has the addresses if somebody is like after him. He can immediately phone somebody and ask for help. Because whistleblowers' lives have been always endangered, whistleblower political thinking. So this is, yeah.
Yeah, well, so Joachim von Schipp was one of the participants in Viola van Alphen's recent Internet of Women Things show in Dutch Design Week, which is why all this stuff is Dutch. But his code is basically about protecting people from surveillance and being monitored. So the pockets of the code have these Faraday cage linings. So you put your iPhone in there or whatever, and it simply vanishes off the grid, right? I mean, there's no ability for radio or cellular signals to escape. It's also an extremely boring-looking, very quiet coat. It's the most average coat in the world, so that nobody notices you. And the idea is that women get stalked and sort of traced for their clothing, and this is the opposite of being attached to the Internet of Things. It's vanishing from the Internet of Things, right? It's vanishing from surveillance. It's vanishing from stalking. It's just being sort of super discreet and just having the ability to just infiltrate through. And of course, he's put it all online, and you can open source it. He's even on an onion router, so no one can see you looking at the code and the idea of the code, and it's sort of a secret code. There's a duo skin. You want to hit duo skin? Okay, well, duo skin, typical, bare conductive paint style application. It's just that it's jewelry, right? It's pretty. I mean, it's functional, but it's a paint-on piece of wearable, which is temporary and, gorgeous. I mean, it's built like other kinds of cool tattoo objects. And it goes away after you wash it with soap, right? It's not, it just has a very feminine kind of sense. It has a very feminine sensibility to it and does everything that a much larger, harder, more expensive, more permanent kind of wearable would do. There's Jewel Cohen. Want to talk about her at all?
You explain.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was
like
Jewel doing her hardware, conductive ritual. She's done a bunch of these kind of handheld device kind of things. Here she's turning her body into an instrument using some bare conductive paint. Kind of dance, play music on your own arms. She did a video of this. It's surprising how interesting that sounds, actually. And you can see that even though she's Dutch and has never been to Casa Jasmina, she's declaring herself as part of Internet of Women things. I mean, she just sees it as like a creative approach that kind of validates the things she's doing.
Yeah, actually, we have a site. We don't meet physically. We don't organize conferences because we don't have neither time, nor money, nor a central figure. You know, we just what I like about it that we, with our work, we're posting their work. So we encourage other people other women especially, to think in a different way. And I have the open password I give them so everybody can use it, you know. And this identifying, when you see something, it's like, I'm a writer basically, and when I read a book that somebody wrote something, okay, I can do it too, you know. This is the kind of community, mostly for people to come out, you know, with different kind of thinking, which is not the mainstream, which is not commercial, which is not clients, which is not users, which uses also a different kind of language, because I don't like this technological language, which is so, how to say, obscure, you know, and it really, there are many other ways of making things and giving them new words, you know. And what I also like a lot is that thinking about technology and IoT through failures, because the failures are often not because the idea is good, but because you are not in the mainstream, or, you know, the time is not ripe, you're too early, you're something like that, you're too off, you're too silent, you're not a charismatic figure. And very often somebody else will pick it up and say, don't think that you're a failure because your product is a failure. This is my, and also thinking about the other thinking that often is, you know, when you have prizes, the first winner, the prize, I always prefer the second prize, you know, or the one who was not. You know, very often the prize is given. Why not rethink of all those people who didn't get the prizes and were participating? Sincerely, I would abolish the prizes. But anyway, think about, and retrofitting all things. This is like my cup of tea. And I think when we started thinking about that, women started coming out without having much trouble.
Yeah, this is NEFA. They're a design research group, a couple of women actually, maybe 3. So they're doing textile innovation, but instead of saying, you know, I'm going to like become a clothes maker and I can see what kind of clothes I can make that I can sell and like make a profit and maybe have the big companies take me up. These are people come from sort of the science world who are saying, what if clothing was more like skin? And just like, we know a lot about skin, and let's see what kind of clothing we could design if we just thought about skin a lot. You know, and I think that's like a really interesting approach. I mean, they're not going to ever be Versace or whatever, but they're in a kind of, you know, a research and design space with couture that you just didn't used to see a lot of, and that really strikes me as interesting and provocative and different and modern. There's AW Electric from U20. They were doing some wearable stuff that contributes emotions to another person. It's a kind of device that looks like skin, and when you get this kind of goosebump horripilation, it can be transmitted to somebody else. So you've got a wearable in which you're sharing a skin experience with someone else, which is the sort of exact opposite of the kind of communication that Apple and Google want you to have, where they want to know what you said to whom, when, and sort of how that can be monetized. That's a nice one, eh?
Yes, we have this. Would you wear it?
Yeah, well, this is pretty top end. This is people doing, you know, some 3D printed dresses with detachable little drones on them. So the drones are using your dress as a landing pad. And they're kind of literally flying on and off of you and like bringing you little bits of data or whatever it is that your tiny drones do. But it's a dress that's made a woman into an aircraft carrier, basically. Mm-hmm. And this was in Viola van Alphen's Internet of Women Things show at Dutch Design Week. Would you wear that?
Yes, I would.
Yeah,
yes.
I thought.
For me,
you want to show them your
yes,
open
yes,
source
open
dress
source
here?
I bought that
This is the
like
open
just for
source
this.
Jasmina here. You can see she has nothing to hide. She's become transparent. The data just blows right through her, ladies and gentlemen. She's living the open source life.
Yes, and I wouldn't mind if I could design a dress with my own, skeleton. Why not?
That would be better, actually.
Yes,
yeah.
it would be better.
I mean, just have yourself scanned and like put the inside of your body on the outside of your body. It's an exciting practice.
Yes, these are in Casa Jasmina we have a couple of women in the very first year who stay there for workshops, and
this is Johanna Nijsenboim.
And they did great stuff afterwards. So explain a little bit, Bruce.
Well, yeah, this is a video that Johanna did where she's doing design fictions about objects communicating to one another. So, like the spoon is looking at the ice cream and the Kleenex box is looking at the ice cream. And then they realize that the woman is eating ice cream and pulling out Kleenexes because she's had a bad romantic breakup. So then the radio calculates that the owner is very upset and starts to play soothing music. But this is a parody of the kind of contextual awareness that a lot of Internet of Things suppliers want to give you. I mean, they want to do things for you before you know that you want them. Right? Mm-hmm. The kind of trying to build some kind of butler system that kind of, in some ways, polices or controls your emotions, or where the objects know more about you than you yourself know, and so Johanna's very good at this kind of thing, and she's designed a number of these little prototypes that we have had in Casa Jasmina. Okay, this is the device stuff we got from ThingsCon Amsterdam, where we were 24 hours ago.
We just came last night.
Right.
Yeah. But I also, in the meantime...
Thank you.
Yeah. What did she say?
We're almost, she says we have 10 minutes
Okay,
left.
I want to say, since we started doing the thing, even I allowed myself to invent things, and this is like very good beginning, because if I start inventing, everybody can, trust me. And it was like, and I had my 4 things I must tell you about. I'll be very short, bros, very short. One is...
We got 10 minutes.
Smart laundry line. I want an Arduino laundry line, which looks like a Christmas tree, and which will be in some corner of your living room, not hiding the laundry, because we invest a lot of money in our laundry, and we'll invest a lot. The fact that it dries and then you have to, in Europe you didn't have dries, then you have to put it in the drawer. No, we should expose it, and while it's dry, goes up, and then you pick it up and just put it in the lawn, and it's like a tree. The second one is a smart Prosecco faucet. You make your own Prosecco. It's easy. I spoke to engineers. I spoke to designers. You choose your own white wine, You choose your amount of bubbles. You do it. It's fresh. It's like, and in Italy, a lot of people don't even drink water. I could drink only Prosecco all day, and it would be so wonderful, The third one is the bathroom. Everybody always cut the architects. They always kind of cut your bathroom. You need a big living room. You need a hall. No, you need a really big bathroom, because the most important moments of our life we spend in the bathroom. Think about it. We grow up there. We're in front of the mirrors. We cry. We do it. I don't want to even go there. You know what we do in the bathroom. We lock the doors. Kids grow up, lock the doors, and spend hours there. And the bathrooms should have incredible mirrors, incredible atmosphere, smells. In Serbia we call it hammam. How do you say here?
Sauna.
Sauna. I mean, it's not really a sauna. It's more than a sauna.
Steam
it's a hammam.
Room,
it's a place. It's like a living room. So I wanted to make that smart with smells and sound. And okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm a science fiction writer, and Jasmina's a political activist. So we have literally hundreds of ideas of things that could be done with homes. And, we are a married couple, and we do have to live together day by day, week by week. And she's from Belgrade, and I'm from Austin, Texas. So we have a lot to discuss. And we have found that maker culture actually helps us resolve a lot of our own kind of conversations and debates. It's like, what kind of silverware are we going to have, or what kind of chairs are we going to sit in, or
Do we need chairs at all?
do we need chairs at all? It's just like, should we have a lot of American gear here? I mean, what kind of chandeliers are we going to have? And we could kind of go default and just buy everything that Apple and Google wants us to have. But we know that milieu pretty well because I'm a technology writer, design writer, science fiction writer, and futurist, and that actually bores us. Which is like conventional computation and kind of typical electronic consumer objects. They're so dull, and kind of increasingly offensive. And we know we don't like them, but we were able to kind of criticize them together, and sort of you hit them high and I hit them low, and that kind of encourages us to build our own kind of life. So we do hang out with people like ThingsCon Amsterdam, ThingsCon Milan. There's a ThingsCon Austin, Texas now, where people who are kind of makers and also kind of technology guys or industrial designers or just kind of alternate Internet of Things are discussing these kinds of Internet of Things matters. And, actually we go to them for genuine domestic advice. They actually help us live better. Not because we buy all the objects, not because they work perfectly. I mean, I've got a Pebble watch here. Pebble went broke. They were taken over by Fitbit. They were exterminated. We're willing to do unusual things. We're eccentric people, but we are able to do them with more of a purpose because we hang out with these entrepreneurs, speculators, disruptors, and makers.
One of the things that's always in this IoT houses is neglected is the dirt, the rifiuti. In Italian, it's like the things you refuse. And we, like he comes from Texas, he brought his own rubbish, I brought my own rubbish. And like we found ourselves full of, so-called rifiuti, things that you don't know what to do with, and actually rethinking of what you really need materially, what you have to scan, and everyday things, how much rubbish we produce, it's a way, this is something that Apple, Google, they don't think about it, They really don't think how much the ecological cycle of stuff, of material stuff, And what is very important in our experiment, which is a life experiment, because we really live that way and we still go on living that way, we survived, we survived our own ideas, is to stay true to ourselves, like really notwithstanding our success, it can be a failure. And the other thing is to work, if you are in this kind of business, and I always tell, especially I tell women, because not to fight, to work with consensus. The moment you lose, enjoy. The moment you lose, and a lot of good drinks, of course, but the moment you lose this joy in creating stuff, because you're fighting somebody, you're fighting an authority, you're fighting whatever, this is, it doesn't work anymore, So it's just to pick up a new lifestyle and embrace new technology, but with pleasure and with your own pleasure.
Yeah, well, this is the Casa Jasmina garden, which I think is the thing that sort of surprised me most in the whole Casa Jasmina project. I mean, this is Garduino, right? So we've got like an automated irrigated water system. But nobody actually gardens at Casa Jasmina. They're all downstairs in the Fablab messing with the robots. We don't have any gardeners or any kind of rural people there at all. So the thing is just it's kind of an automatic digital jungle. And every time you go there, it's like change and it's bigger just because of the sheer fertility of the Italian landscape. And, this has taught me that I don't have to micromanage everything in my smart home. On the contrary, it's a lot better just to be of generous spirit, kind of water the soil and accept what happens, right? It's like, okay, maybe there's snails in there, maybe lizards have appeared. We do have snails and lizards outside our Fab Lab. Sometimes things fruit, sometimes they die on the vine. It's kind of okay. I mean, we don't have to make money from it. The police aren't going to drop by. We got plenty of dirt. There's always more boxes. We could print more, You don't have to scold the squash, which is like the pumpkins which are growing in this terrible profusion. And you don't have to grab every ounce of credit. You can sort of provide more value than you seize. And it's like, it's all right, It's actually just a more civilized way to live.
I think if somebody has a question, because now we're
We'll
finished.
wrap up with our last piece of propaganda here.
Yes, which is...
A bunch of IOWT
Yeah, this is the
website
groups
stuff.
I was telling you that basically were born from this and they're new, and this is our, we have a collaborative online space where I'm asking anybody who is interested can just, write me and you can post your stuff on your own, so this is it. Any questions? Yes?
I think maybe I'm wrong, but you mentioned the exit plan for Casa Jasmina.
We did.
Yes, you.
Talk a little bit about that, maybe?
You speak about the exit plan.
Well, yeah. I think if you're doing a utopian dream project of this kind, the worst mistake of kind of the 1970s was thinking that you would drop out of society permanently and build some permanent other way of life. Because even if you're an alternative person, a bohemian, or you're starting a social center, you can't do like an open-ended commitment to that because it just goes on too long and it demands too much of your time. What you need to do is document what you're doing, behave as if it was a scientific experiment, kind of share what you've learned, and then open yourself up to something else that will capture your enthusiasm later. So, we did the Casa Jasmina project, but we don't hang out there every day. We don't run it as a hotel. It's not a business for us. We were never paid to do it. It took about 2 years to complete it, in the sense that you can go in there and you can live. And a lot of people do. Arduino staffers come in and they just stay there. We have guests. Sometimes people even pay to stay there. Or, just people in the building use it as a kind of office or a place to take naps and so forth.
And they make parties, they make meals.
Right.
And also, I think the victory condition is why it's already over, that it's a different way of living and using IoT and IOWT. But our victory condition would be that we reproduce it in other places. But they wouldn't be the same, as I mentioned before. It wouldn't be called Casa Jasmina. It would be called, I don't know, even in Rome it would change the name because Romans live differently than Torinese, And if you're like in Germany, it would be Casa Gerta. If it's in Serbia, it would be Casa Ljiljana, for example, This would be, for example, and we do have people who are interested in doing, but of course there has to be a couple at least, better even when they have small children because our children are grown up, to do it like following because, our experience is art is life, life is art a little bit. We did it, or makers, or whatever we are. It's so this is sometimes when you do something you really rely on the shoulders of somebody who did maybe even 100 years ago. We're done. Here, thank you. We have the girl with a.
Okay, yeah, she's throwing us off the stage. Yeah, it's good to be able to walk out the door when your presentation's over, right? Which is what we're going to do right now. So thank you for your attention.
I can dress. Open source.